This may be the most dangerous lesson I've ever shared with you, because after today, you will understand something most people should never know. You'll learn about a mental protocol so powerful, so extreme in its effects, that it was quietly buried inside intelligence circles for years. They called it Operation Cognitive Override, OCO for short, a method originally designed for operatives who needed to think faster than situations could collapse around them. A method that can unlock hyperintelligence in as little as 72 hours, or leave you feeling like a stranger inside your own mind. Once you understand how it works, you cannot pretend you don't know. You cannot go back. Your brain will not allow it. There is a switch hidden inside your nervous system. Most people never find it, never touch it, and never activate it. It lies buried under layers of emotional noise, identity habits, and autopilot routines you've been repeating for decades. But if something or someone forces that switch on, your mind enters a state so sharp it feels unnatural. Patterns jump out of the air. Thoughts accelerate. Emotions quiet themselves. You begin to operate like someone who sees the world 2 seconds before everyone else. That's the promise of OCO. But here's the dangerous part. Your brain doesn't upgrade for free. When you force intelligence to spike, something else inside you must step aside. OCO was discovered accidentally. A psychologist embedded in a defense project noticed something strange among certain operatives. Moments of crisis didn't make them panic. They made them faster, colder, and brighter. She realized their brains were shutting off identity loops, those repetitive stories you tell yourself about who you are, while activating the circuits responsible for calculation, prediction, and threat analysis. It wasn't confidence. It wasn't courage. It was neurological override, a temporary muting of the self, replaced by pure cognition. And that's where the danger begins. When the self quiets down, intelligence surges. But if the self stays quiet for too long, you risk losing the person you were before. Most people never come close to this state. Their minds are cluttered with noise. What people think, who they want to be, what they're afraid of, what happened in the past, what might happen in the future. This noise drains cognitive power. It steals bandwidth your brain desperately needs for higher processing. OCO targets that noise directly. It shuts it off, not gently, not slowly, like flipping a breaker. Imagine living for 72 hours with zero emotional interference. Imagine thinking without insecurity, without hesitation, without fear. Imagine making decisions with the precision of a surgeon and the calm of a sniper. That's the promise of hyperintelligence. But imagine something else. Imagine looking in the mirror after those 72 hours and realizing the person staring back feels unfamiliar. Not wrong, not broken, just different. As if the old emotional patterns haven't returned. As if something new took their place. OCO works in 3 phases, each more powerful and more dangerous than the last. Phase 1. Cognitive silence. This is the moment the override truly takes hold. The brain doesn't gain power by adding more noise. It does it by shutting down the systems that slow perception. Emotional interference fades, not because you suppress anything, but because the self-referencing loop quietly disconnects. Your mind stops asking, "What does this say about me?" and shifts to a colder question, "What is the truth right in front of me?" With that single change, everything sharpens dramatically. Information moves faster, patterns reveal themselves sooner, and intentions become visible before words appear. Even ordinary conversations feel slower, almost predictable, and strangely manageable. People become easier to read, not because you suddenly became smarter, but because the internal noise finally stopped completely. Most people mistake this state for confidence. It isn't confidence, it is silence, deliberate and absolute inner stillness. Phase 2. Strategic awareness. Once the internal noise disappears, the brain begins reallocating its energy with precision. Circuits that once fed constant self-talk are redirected toward computation, pattern recognition, and prediction. You begin running simulations automatically, without effort or intention. Consequences appear in your mind 5 moves ahead, as if the future is quietly outlining itself. Stress no longer slows you down. It sharpens you significantly, almost aggressively. Time feels slower, reactions feel faster, and your awareness expands into something hyper-present and hyper-rational. This is the phase where operatives were said to become cold. Not because they lacked empathy, but because empathy no longer interrupted analysis or delayed necessary action or clarity. They could observe without absorbing, decide without hesitation, and execute without the emotional drag that cripples ordinary decision-making in everyday life, especially under pressure or in uncertainty or conflict situations. Phase 3. Identity drift. This is the part no one talked about publicly, the element that made OCO classified and whispered about in closed rooms. Because once your brain turns the self off for long enough, it doesn't always turn back on the same way. Emotional patterns don't reboot perfectly. Old fears don't return in the same shape. Old insecurities feel foreign. Old habits feel distant, like memories borrowed from someone else's life. Some people experience this shift as a breakthrough, a kind of internal rebirth, a cleaner and more structured mind emerging from the silence. Others experience it as disconnection, as if something essential went missing, as if the emotional foundation they lived on quietly cracked and rebuilt itself overnight. Not broken, just altered, transformed into something unfamiliar yet undeniably functional. The change feels subtle, yet permanently carved into you. The line between rebirth and disconnection is razor thin. You might be wondering which type of person you'd become, the one who rises or the one who drifts. The truth is, neither outcome is random. OCO amplifies whatever is already inside you. If your mind is anchored values, purpose, clarity, you become sharper than ever. If your mind is chaotic, fearful, unresolved, conflicted, you risk becoming someone you don't recognize. This is why the program was shuttered, not because it didn't work, but because it worked too well. Most people are not prepared to meet the version of themselves that emerges when intelligence overwhelms emotion. But here's the question you have to face. You've already triggered parts of OCO in your life. You just didn't have a name for it. Think of that moment when you acted with unnatural clarity during a crisis, when your heart should have raced but your mind went still, when you knew exactly what to do instantly, when you felt like someone else took control, someone smarter, calmer, colder. That was a fragment of Operation Cognitive Override. It happens to soldiers, surgeons, athletes, parents, anyone facing a moment where emotion must step aside for survival. But OCO isn't about crisis. It's about control, about turning that state on deliberately, about becoming the version of yourself that exists when the noise dies. If you've ever wanted to think faster, learn faster, and react faster, this is where it happens. But before you chase it, you need to understand this. Hyperintelligence is not comfortable. It is not warm. It is not gentle. It strips away the illusions you live with, the excuses, the insecurities, the self-doubt. Your mind becomes brutally honest, even with you. Some people can handle that. Most can't. There's a reason certain operatives beg to stay in the override state, even after doctors warn them of identity drift. They said the quiet was addictive, the clarity felt holy, the intelligence felt supernatural. But clarity is a double-edged weapon. When you see the world without emotion, you also see truths you once ignored. About yourself, about others, about life. And some truths break people. This is the paradox of OCO. It gives you a level of intelligence that feels unreal, but it demands a piece of the self in return. If you want to test your mind just once, there's a safe way to taste it without triggering drift. Choose 1 hour, one task, one environment. Remove every distraction, every emotion, every personal narrative. Approach that task with pure cognition. No fear, no interpretation, no identity. Just logic, just an observation, just awareness. You will notice the shift instantly. Time slows. Thoughts sharpen, noise dies. That's OCO in miniature. But if you want the full protocol, the 72-hour transformation, the one operatives risk their sanity for, you need more than a single video. Subscribe right now so you don't miss the next part. If this video reaches 50,000 views, I'll release part 2, the internal sequence used to activate the override safely, the psychological checkpoints that prevent identity drift, and the cognitive drills designed to harden your mind for high-speed processing. If you want part 2 sooner, comment part 2 below. The more requests I see, the faster it comes. Until then, remember this. You don't rise to the level of your intelligence. You rise to the level of your override.